Okay, good evening, everybody. So, Shawan, you have a question, huh? Let me make you the presenter. Sure.
Hello, you can see me, right?
Yes, yes.
My screen.
Yep.
Okay, now see within I wrote one add customer of JSP.
Okay.
Okay, because actually I just finished learning the JSP, so I finished list and add. So I did the add myself, basically
Definitely.
copied from a servlet and just customized it from a servlet. So only question I have is this sysout.
Okay.
It's not going. See, it's within a scriptlet. Okay, so therefore it's a Java code.
Definitely.
But it's not going to the console.
Um, okay. Can we go down?
Yeah, I can run it and show you.
Okay. Okay. Anyone can figure? Can you make me the presenter? I'll just highlight. Can you make me? Sorry, I'll give you. Please give me the keyboard and mouse. So,
See,
anyone quickly? Something popped up to my eyes. So, can anyone see what's wrong here? Can anyone see what's wrong here? Quickly,
oh, okay, no, I can't.
quickly. Either. You,
Okay, it's in the try-catch block. That's why.
you
Sorry
got it.
about that. See
No
what
problem.
happened,
No problem.
I wanted to put this one in the other scriptlet
Right.
just for seeing that you
It's
told us
a
that
it's a
should
tricky
work.
part.
Okay.
Either it has to occur to you within a second, or it doesn't occur to you. It's a usual thing. When I sometimes stare at the same code for hours and you know
Happens.
can't figure out, I'll ask my colleague and hey, can you see what's going on here? It's like a different eye. Hey, there's something wrong here. So it's like you know. So
Yeah, it even happens with finding things like familiar things around you. You cannot find it. Somebody else can find it
you got it
like that.
precisely.
But I got it. Okay. Thanks very much.
No problem.
Okay, now fine. Okay, now we can proceed.
Okay.
And at the end of the class, I'll ask you a very trivial question. Not trivial. It's bothering me. I'm giving a slash capital delete
Okay.
in my URL pattern. So when I'm giving capital slash delete, it's not finding it. And when I'm giving delete two or something like that, it's working. Not now. It's a very silly thing.
Okay.
So we will see it on the end of the class.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Uma, you are also having issues? You're saying your server.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's look at it briefly. Let's help you. Okay, it's saying port 9090 required by Pivotal TC Server Developer Edition at localhost is already in use. What should you do?
It's already 1990.
Sure. What is it telling you, first of all?
It's already in use. So
Exactly.
which one is using it?
So,
Yeah, that's awesome. You can use 991.
antenna, thank you. Antenna, right? Who just spoke?
Yeah,
And
it's
Okay.
antenna.
Earlier, you were using 9090 for something else, or I'm not guessing, 100% in your case, previously, your previous Eclipse, right? So, I mean, just few hours back, okay, you're using it. That Tomcat did not close properly, okay? So what it is saying is that you are trying to start Tomcat again on 1990. It is saying that, hey, it's already in use. Someone else is using, some other process is using it. So identify the process and kill it, and then try starting it. Simple.
Like you did that day, right?
Exactly. Netstat minus ANO. It gives you PID, process ID, and then go task manager, identify the process ID, kill it, and then come restart it. And if it's a real genuine problem, it's not a genuine problem. It's just that Eclipse did not close properly earlier. Our Tomcat inside the Eclipse did not close properly. So that is why we are doing it this way. But if it's a genuine problem, 1990, if it's really used genuinely by some other application, then as Antenna suggested, use some other port. But I wouldn't recommend for that because it's not a genuine error, meaning it's your own app doing it. So quickly go to command prompt. Do a netstat. Yeah.
ANO.
Oh, I don't know what actually each one stands for. Okay, now go up to the results. Keep going up. Keep going, keep going. Okay, 1990. Wait. Or can you keep going up? Yeah. 1990. What is the process ID?
Which one are you looking at? 90.
Second column here. 0.0.0.0 colon 1990. Yeah. Now
Okay.
on the right side, the last one is 8584, right? That's the
Okay.
process ID. So
Okay.
go to your task manager, identify the task process, identify that particular process, and then kill it. Restart your, try restarting your machine. Sorry, not machine. Your Eclipse, or not even Eclipse, your Tomcats. Sorry. Okay, 8584.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah.
No problem. Any other problems? Any other issues? Any other questions?
Sometimes weird things happen. Like I today created one project, dynamic web project, but it didn't create the web.xml. I deleted and
Yeah.
recreated, it came back.
It definitely happens. I mean, it could happen. It should never happen. But as I told you, a lot of things are buggy, so it's usual thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so today, in the last class, we talked about session tracking, and then I mean two sessions before that, we talked about session tracking, and then we implemented session tracking into our application, which is eShop. Can you please put yourself on mute? Okay, thank you. So we introduced session tracking to our eShop, and we brought it up to a pretty decent state. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to briefly introduce a couple of things. Okay. Briefly, actually, I have very detailed videos, very detailed videos on that, but I'm going to talk about web application structure one more time. Okay. And then how do we build web application in real world? And then how do we use Ant, and how do we use Maven? And then what we will do is we will Mavenize our application, our eShop application, and change a lot of things. Okay. So Mavenize our eShop application, and then I'm just paving myself a good path to introduce Spring Framework. Okay. Okay. So we have been talking about this web application, right? And web application is nothing but a website, right? So once we build the web application, we deploy it in web container, right? We deploy it in web containers like Tomcat, Jetty, WebSphere, WebLogic, etc. You know, application servers, web servers, etc. And then the way we have been doing all along is using this dynamic web project. So in Eclipse, you can create file, new dynamic web project, and then it creates certain structure, web content, and this is where all of your web content goes, like HTML pages, JSPs that are directly accessed by JSP, that are accessed directly by a browser. And then you have WebINF. This WebINF is actually mandated by servlet spec. So you must put web.xml directly in web.xml. You must put all the jar files in webinf lib. Okay, all the JSPs or for that matter, all the resources that are under webinf are secured. They cannot be called directly from the browser. So that is why after we learned MVC, we started putting all the JSPs under webinf, so that these are accessed only by the servlets, the server-side components, but not directly from the web browser. The moment you put this JSP page outside of the WebINF, they can be called directly from the browser. We don't want to do that, and that's a bad design. So we started putting it. So this kind of a folder structure is mandated by servlet spec, because the same servlet spec will be used by the servlet containers also, like Tomcat, WebSphere, WebLogic, right? They expect this kind of folder structure. But now, see, look at this web content here. This is actually Eclipse specific. Okay. Now, once you are done building eShop application, right? Now you're done building your eShop application. Everything is working fine. And then now what we want to do is we want to expose this to the public world. Okay, we want to expose this eShop to the public world. In that case, what we do is nowadays, especially nowadays, you don't have to spin a separate server. You can use cloud-based servers. So one of the examples for cloud-based servers is Amazon Web Services, AWS. So what AWS is, within Amazon cloud platform, they've got this AWS where you can start a server. They will give you a machine, a computer, a CPU, okay, and certain memory. They will give you this one, and then what you do is you built this eShop, right? You can deploy this. So this is AWS server, right? So here in the same server at minimum, the most simplistic approach, right? The most simplistic architecture is you can install your server here. Oracle may be too costly, or it may have licensing issues. So you can install. There is another database called MySQL database. You can install MySQL database, and then you can install your Tomcat also on the same server, right? Now, your eShop application, you want to deploy it in Tomcat. or it's not only on AWS. Tomorrow, when you join any company, all the development will be very similar to what we have been doing so far. But once it is all done, once the development is done, once you are ready to push it to the next level, you want your code to be tested by other members, right? QA people, right? Quality assurance team. There is a separate testing department, testing team in most of the companies. So they want to test it. So you don't want to keep the code in your machine. You want to push it to the QA environment. Let's say this is a QA-like environment. At that time, the way we deploy the applications is that you don't put all of this folder structure each up and give it to them. You want to give one single file. You typically give in one file. All of this stuff, you can compress it like a zip file, right? Like how you compress everything. If you have a bunch of 1,000 files, right? Let's say you have 1,000 files and you want to give it to somebody in a single file, then you can compress it, create one zip file and give it to them. Similarly, what you can do here is that the whole eShop, you can compress it and build a special kind of zip called, it is similar to your jar file. Jar file is a Java archive file. It is also like a zip file, but it will contain all the Java class files, right? But here, we not only have the jars. This is not a jar. This is a web application itself. The whole web application will be zipped to something called WAR file, WAR, WAR, Web Archive File. WAR file stands for Web Archive File. Okay, so once you build the WAR file, once you get the .war file, you give this, or you place this WAR file, let's say eShop.war file, in a specific location in Tomcat, and you start the Tomcat. Tomcat will understand, hey, I want all the web applications to be in this particular folder. That folder, also I'll tell you, for Tomcat, it's called Web Apps folder. Web Apps folder. I'll show you where that one is. So go to your server, right click, browse deployment location. Okay, and go to base instance and then web apps. See here, you drop your WAR file here, okay, and then you start your Tomcat. It will automatically get deployed. Of course, in the case of, if you're not doing a compressed deployment, if you're doing an exploded deployment, we call this typically an exploded deployment. Okay, so we call this an exploded deployment. If you have an exploded deployment, see here, WTP web apps. So what it means is web apps coming from Eclipse. Okay, WTP is a plugin of your Eclipse. Okay. So this is where you will put all of your exploded deployments, meaning all of your applications that are running from Eclipse, they go directly here. But if you don't have Eclipse, okay, you have just this plain simple vanilla Eclipse, plain simple vanilla Tomcat, and then you have a WAR file. Let's say Showan, he built a web application like Amazon.com or Redbox.com, and then he built a complete compressed WAR file, and he wants to sell it to somebody, or he wants to deploy it. Let's say he wants to deploy it in Amazon Web Services, AWS, cloud-based servers, right? what he does is he will get that single WAR file and he will places that in web apps folder, and then he will start the server. And this is where the deployment starts from. This is where your Tomcat keeps listening. Tomcat will keep looking for any files here. Okay, any WAR files here. It will look for that. So that is a WAR file. It's called web archive file. And now you can simply get from here also, you can actually right click this guy and then say, you can do file export and then search for WAR file. See here, web WAR file. Next, and then web project. So what project do you want to do it? Web project name, destination, where do you want to do it? Let's say the Java training, directly Java training. Okay. And then optimize for a specific server runtime. If you want to do it, you don't need to click this one. It's the same for your WAR file. Now is available for, see here, eshop.war. This is one file that you need. Once all the development, this is all the hard work. 10 members team worked over probably more than 15 months. Finally, what they achieve, they will achieve this one, WAR file. The whole, total web application is one WAR file. Okay, if you look at it, right click. I'm using it with WinZip, Open Archive. Look at it. It will contain just meta-inf, web-inf. Look at it, web-inf. Your web-inf, look at it, directly web.xml. Your web.xml is directly here, and your jar files are inside this one. So your web archive file contains the jar files also. All the jar files for a web application will be in web-inf lib. Okay? So all the jar files are here. And then all of your compiled classes, your jar file will not typically contain the source files. It will only contain the binaries, meaning .class files. So here also your WAR file, all of your servlets, all of your DAO classes, where do they go end of the day? Well, they all go into this web-inf classes folder. Look at it, com, training, eShop, web, checkout servlet, home page servlet, shopping cart servlet. These are not the .java classes. These are binaries, .class files. Typically, your jar files and WAR files will only contain the binaries. Okay, you don't want to give the you don't want to give anyone your all of your hard work, your source code, right? You typically don't want to give it. Okay, so these are all your class files in this particular package. So the whole project has been compressed into one file that's called WAR file, and this is what servlet spec mandates, that when you deploy it, your servlet container does not have to provide the deployment provision for exploded structure like this, like an individual folder structure. It does not have to, but it must provide a way to deploy this WAR file. This is the standard way of deploying. Now you just drop this WAR file in anywhere within probably 30 minutes. You can spin a server in Amazon Web Services. You can drop your WAR file. So your web application is live on Amazon servers within probably 30 minutes. Yeah, because you want to install Tomcat, you want to install MySQL, and you want to change a couple of things here, because currently you put it Oracle jar files, right, in web-inf lib. If you look at it, see here, you need to change this to MySQL, and that's it. Everything will be make sense. So that is about web archive file or WAR file. This is how we deploy it beyond local. And if I want to tell you the deployment structure or environments, typically what happens is any web application that we do, it will be in your local machine to start with, right? You'll be doing it. And then typically, the reason I'm saying typically is because every company has a different structure. Once you are done making changes, once you are done with unit testing and you did your sanity checks, all of that, once you make sure everything is good, then move it to another environment called development environment, dev environment. So this is where rest of the people, all the developers will push their code. Okay, everybody push their code, and then this development environment is typically a Unix machine. Okay, and then this is where your actual servlet container runs, and this is where you will push your war file, and then all the developers will be testing with integrated code. I may be working in my local machine, I may be working on my module, but Shovan, Oma, Madhavi, so these are all working on their modules. But this is where every code gets integrated. There are good practices there. There's something called continuous integration, continuous delivery, etc. But anyways, so this is where we typically make sure code as a whole is working good. Once this is all good, then we push to the next environment called either QA environment, or in some companies they call SIT environment, system integration test environment. Okay, or some people have this QA and SIT environment, and this is where all the testing people, QA people, will come into picture and they test the code. Okay, they like to test the code in QA environment, and once they make sure functionality is all good, then finally this is optional. Some companies may not have it, but typically we move it to another environment called staging environment, or UAT environment, or pre-prod environment. So here the situation or the whole circumstances are very, very, very similar to production. Okay, almost they simulate the production environment. Okay, and then the actual users will be testing here, the real users. Okay, whoever gave you the requirement, those business units, BUs, they typically test it here, business units. Okay, and then finally, once this is good, production. This is a live production application. This is where the rest of the world, everybody in the world will use it. When you build a website called eshop.com, this is where millions of people will go and shop there. Okay, this is the life cycle of your application. So your WAR file moves here. It doesn't have to be WAR file. You may be using your dynamic web project and playing with it, but end of the day, when you push it to dev, you'll push your code, and then there is a WAR file built automatically here. Okay, there is something called continuous integration. So that continuous integration will be running here, and then generating the WAR file, QA, staging, and prod environment. Okay. Any questions so far?
Venkat, could you show the first when you went to the two methods you went to the war destination. Can you show once more how to go there?
Yeah. So here, right click, and then browse deployment location, and that's it. And then
right click on the server, right?
Yes, right click on the server, and then browse deployment location.
Okay, it goes to, and what I see is all my project names. So I should click in any of the projects. Right?
Yeah, that's your WTP projects. Okay.
And under that I see Meta-INF and Web-INF.
Right. This is all your project. But what I'm saying is that go one level above, go to base instance. Base instance
means the root.
This is where you are, right? You are looking at, look at my.
I'm there.
Okay. Now there, web apps folder is there, right? That is where typically we drop the WAR files. So what I wanted to do is, let's say we don't have, let's say I don't have Eclipse, okay? and I'm not a developer. Somebody, Showan did all the hard work and he gave me. So let me delete this eShop completely from my WTP and then all of this. I'll delete everything and then I'll remove this application directly from here. Okay. Now I want to start this guy.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Now look at it. Localhost 1990 eShop. There is no application called eShop anyway. So now what I want to do is I'll just, whatever the WAR file that I built it, I'll just drop it into base instance web apps folder. And now observe your console here. See, something is going on here. Observe here. Deployment of web application archive, pivotal server, eShop WAR has finished in 702 milliseconds. And then look at it. Deploying web application archive. You didn't do anything. You dropped it and things have happened. And your Tomcat realized that there is a web application that it needs to deploy it, and also it actually unzipped all of that and put it and make this available. And now go to eShop and your eShop is available
Right.
in a single click. And I'm not a developer. I don't have Eclipse or anything. I just have this Tomcat. Okay? Somebody gave me that WAR file. You getting it?
Yeah, I got it. But the thing is, you drag dropped it, right? The eShop application.
I mean WAR file.
I mean the WAR file.
Yes.
So WAR file.
Copy
See,
paste.
copy the entire project from Eclipse and then
WAR
paste it over
file.
there.
No. We built.
Oh, that's where the WAR file is. Okay.
That's a single file here.
Mm.
You just drop. So let's say, let's delete this guy completely, and let's do stop the server here, and then let's delete the whole eShop. Let's delete the whole eShop WAR file, right?
Okay.
So all you have to do is just your server, you can copy and start the server, or you can do the other way around. It doesn't matter really. But I wanted to show you how things work. So as soon as I drop here, observe it. See, it automatically, did I do anything? I did not do anything. It automatically unzipped it and then created it and then deployed this application beautifully. So that's how things work. Lena, go ahead, answer. Lena?
Yes, Venkat, I have one question. Like, if three people are working on three different modules and they have three WAR files, you said like the first will be the development environment, right? So they will drop all the three WAR files in the
No, actually they will not. I want to stop you there.
Okay.
I did not
Okay.
emphasize on a point that much. I did not emphasize a point that much, but you stressed it. So let me explain that. So what happens is within this dev, typically
Mm-hmm.
they will have something called a continuous integration server or continuous integration environment. What this continuous integration is, all of you people, you never deploy the WAR file. You never build WAR file locally and deploy it into dev. You will always check in your code. This is, let's say, this is your subversion, okay, or this is your git. These are all same, right? So all the developers, what they do is they will, once you are happy with your code, go ahead and put your code in subversion, put your code into git, one of these repositories, right? Now there is one software here called continuous integration application. Okay, there is something called continuous integration application. One of the most popular one is called Jenkins, Jenkins, Jenkins. Okay, so what this Jenkins does is it will pull the source code from the subversion. You will never deploy the WAR file into dev environment. This will automatically you just push a button, or even every so often, every couple of hours, it can run. Pull the code. All these people, they're checking in the code. Okay, probably this guy does not have this guy's code yet, but this guy will pull everybody's code, and then here it will create a war file and then deploy it into Tomcat. Okay, so no developer will ever create a war file and deploy it. They only check in the code, and it will be done automatically by certain tools like Jenkins, one of the continuous integration environments. Okay, did I answer your question now?
Yes, yes, Venkat. Yes, got it.
And
Thanks.
I wanted to mention that some people may ask about continuous integration, and then I'm also very excited about it, but that's one of those side topics that I don't talk about it in every batch. So yes, so look at this guy, Jenkins and other miscellaneous items. Look at it. So watch this video. Okay, I talked about it in detail. Actually, I showed them how Jenkins work, how do you configure Jenkins, etc. It's continuous, and I talked in detail.
It's in current batch, right?
Yeah, somewhere.
Current batch.
Current batch, yes. Okay. And as I said, that's about the war file, and I probably have talked little briefly compared to other times to save some time, but there is a go to this previous batch here, and then look at this guy, war, deployment, logging, and ant. Okay, please watch this nice video if you want to learn more about it. Okay, but for now, it's kind of a similar thing that I covered there. Anyways,
So Venkat, I missed one central point actually.
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Antenna, go ahead.
What's inside meta-inf? I don't see any files in mine. I mean, is there any file that's going to be included in the future, or
Right.
what's inside?
Meta-inf has one, there is a folder called meta-inf here. If you look at it, meta-inf has a file called manifest.mf. See here, manifest.mf. You just click on it, or just edit. This manifest file contains some metadata information about, let's say you are building eShop application 1.0. You can talk about it. Hey, this is 1.0. You can put your description about it. I'm introducing, it's like an Apple iOS 5 to iOS 6. They'll say that it's a major change, we introduce these changes, right? All of those changes will go here. And there's something else called class path. This is typically not so useful in the web-based applications, but if you're working on batch-based applications, if you're building a jar file, and if you want to run a Java class inside a jar file, and by keeping all these jar files in the class path, you will use that class path. But typically, you will use manifest to mention about your jar file itself, or your war file itself. Every jar file will have it. Let me show you probably decent jar file, OJDBC6, right? So let's click on this guy. Oops. D Java training projects, eShop, and then web content, webinf lib. So open archive, see here meta-inf. Look at it. See here, manifest version 1.0, Ant version. This is how it has been built. It has been built from Ant 1.6.5. It was created on this date by Sun Microsystems implementation vendor Oracle Corporation, implementation title JDBC, implementation version 11.2. This works for Oracle 11.2. That's what they've been. So specification title JDBC. See here, JDBC 4.0 is what they're supporting here. So all of these details.
Okay.
Okay. Any other
Okay.
questions?
Venkat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I'll be asking the same question again. See, what happened was, I missed it actually when you were drag and dropping. So, see, I go to the Tomcat server, browse deployment location, go one step up to the base instance. Then I go to web apps. I see manager and root over there. So it's in the web apps directory, which is the target directory for deployment, right?
You got it.
Okay. Now, when you're deploying, how are you copying it actually?
Just copy.
From the-
Control C, Control V.
Oh, I mean,
So-
copy the entire folder.
WAR file.
Yeah, that WAR file is WAR file.
See here, you select this web application, file, export, okay, and then in the web WAR file, okay, or you search for WAR, and then click next, and you copy wherever you want to do it, and then just
Okay.
right, and then finish it. It will do it for you. Eclipse will do it for you.
Eclipse will do. Okay, but then see, for in our case, the projects that we have created for our purpose, the deployment, and deployed over there, see, they are supposed to have been deployed. So I would expect the WAR file is already there for this, but why don't I see them?
Because that was, I think, that was my original point, that we have not been doing the WAR file. We are doing just by running this as run on server. Okay, this whole application will be running here. Okay, and that is how your Eclipse supports it. If you look at this guy here, WTP Web Apps, by keeping this in WTP Web Apps. Okay, Tomcat supports this deployment. Almost all the web containers support this one, but they don't have to. They are doing it
As a favor.
just to help us, exactly, as a favor, but they don't have to. But what they must do is they must support WAR file deployment, a single file.
Got you. So
Okay.
that's the productionizing
Exactly.
method.
Exactly.
Okay. That's fine. Got you. Thanks.
Venkat,
Yeah.
when we are creating the WAR file, like exporting the web application and creating the WAR file, should we check that checkbox where it says export source files?
You can. It doesn't matter. Really, I wouldn't do that, mainly because it increased the size of my WAR file. But if you think if it's going to help us, so if you're building, it depends on versioning, Jyoti. So let's say you are deploying 1.0 today and 1.1 later, and you don't have a proper version, proper release management to go back to that version anytime, then what you do is push your source files also. Okay.
So we will put our WAR files in web apps, right?
Precisely.
Okay.
Okay. Now, so Eclipse, you guys are lucky you are learning now in 2015 where right click and then export as a WAR file, all of this. It's good. Okay. And then, in fact, you don't have to know really the servlet spec that much because your Eclipse is providing it. You just right click new dynamic web project and it's creating all the folder structure and everything, right? But this is the deal with Eclipse. But maybe some people may not use Eclipse. Some people may use just plain simple notepads or text pads. mean, I'll be shocked if anyone is using it for professional development, but let's say some other tools that they like it, that they have been using it for the last 30 years. So they may code in Emacs editors in Unix. Okay, I've seen people professionally doing it in Emacs. So you can't complain. So in that case, they don't have Eclipse right click, export it, right? And also, as I was just saying, there's a continuous integration environment here, in this case, Jenkins. So Jenkins is going to pull the source code from Subversion repository or Git repository, and it is going to compile your source codes. It is going to create the WAR file. When it creates the WAR file, it has to follow certain standards. It has to create a folder called webinf. Inside webinf, it has to create a folder called lib. And this is where all the jar files should go. And inside webinf, it has to create a folder called classes. This is where all the .class files will go. This is the standard, right? And then finally zip all of this together and create a single WAR file. So who does all of this? One, you can do it manually. You can create a folder called webinf, and underneath that you can create a folder called lib, and you can manually copy jar files, all of this. You can do it, right? You don't know how many times can you do it. You can do it. Now, the second approach is that you can write a script to do it. You can automate all of these steps. Create a folder called webinf. Underneath that, create two folders. One is called lib, the other one is called classes. So copy all the jar files from various locations and put it here. Compile your Java code. Once you get the .class files, copy all the .class files here. And finally, keep your web.xml directly in webinf folder. And finally, you compress all of this, you zip all of them and create a nice little WAR file. And then deploy this, meaning place this in web apps folder in Tomcat. Then start the Tomcat. You need to do all of these steps. Is it possible to do it manually? One, it's very tedious, right? And you can't do it a number of times. And number two, you can't automate this. You want this to be automated. If you automate this, then a tool like Jenkins, where it can automatically do all of these steps that you just described. For that, we have some tools. One of them is called Ant. So these are called build tools. These are called build tools. And then this is what almost back in 2001, 2002 area, I've used this, and almost for a decade I've used it. Okay. And for the last 6-7 years, I've been using another tool called Maven. Okay, another build tool called Maven. What they do is, in Ant or Maven, what you say is that they have completely different architectures. In Ant, what you do is you specify all the steps in an XML. Okay, you specify all the steps in an XML, special XML called build.xml. Here, you specify, hey, copy these steps from here. Create a folder called webinf. Underneath that, create a folder called lib, and then copy all the files. I'll show you how a typical Ant build.xml look. Okay. So let me show you. I actually taught about, I taught this in pretty detail. I'll show you a sample build.xml here. We built a web application here, automated way. See here, I created a property called tomcat.home. So from here onwards, I don't have to hard code where my tomcat is. I rather specify that tomcat.home. How do I specify this? With this one, dollar braces. If I specify anything in between, between dollar and braces, then that means, hey, it means I'm a variable. Okay, look for me somewhere here. When I say var dir, meaning I'm looking at an dist dir slash Uncle Bob. Okay, dist dir is a folder called dist. Okay, this is my var file name. So I'm writing a small target here called clean. Clean means I'm deleting everything here. Okay, and see here in the initialization section, I'm doing a small and task called mkdir, make directory, right? I'm creating a folder called dist. Underneath that, I'm creating a folder called webinf. Underneath that, I'm creating a folder called classes, webinf classes. Okay, and then I'm putting all the jar files into class path. I'm putting all the jar files in the class path. In Eclipse, you have this class path, right? In Eclipse, you have this build path, configure build path. You have all of these jar files. These 3 jar files are in the class path. Once you put them in the webinf lib, they're available for your compiler too, because it automatically puts them in your class path. But you need to automate them. You don't want to depend on Eclipse. You don't have Eclipse, period. Okay? So, and you don't want to depend on tool. You want your solution to be tool agnostic. That should work everywhere. Windows machine, Unix machine, everywhere. And this ant is actually written in Java. Okay? So it works everywhere without you having to do any changes. Okay? The same script works in Windows, same script works in Linux, same script works in Unix. Okay, so here master class path, and you have these jar files here in the class path. And now see here, I created a target called compile, meaning I'm specifying what I mean by compile. See, I'm using Java C, meaning Java compiler. So take everything in source folder, include all the .java files, and please keep them in webinf classes. Look at it. Compile all the source files and put the class files, .class files in webinf classes. Okay, and then when you do it, please put all the jar files in the class path into your class path. And then finally, all the class files are done. Now, copy your all the XML files into webinf folder. Okay, and then copy all the jar files into webinf lib. See here, I'm copying all of that stuff from web content webinf lib into webinf lib, and then copy JSP files. I'm copying all the JSP files into webinf, and then all the properties files. If you have any properties files, you copy all of them into webinf classes, and then finally you create a war file. See here, jar. I'm using a ant task called jar. You can use the same jar task for you want to create a jar file, you want to create a war file, you want to create another bigger file called enterprise archive file. We didn't talk about EAR file yet, but jar file. So create this jar file and then finally deploy also. So now put this war file in tomcat/webapps folder, tomcat home directory/webapps folder. You put your war file. The beauty is that the dependency, especially, you just say ant deploy. Deploy depends on build, so first it will do a build. It will try to do a build. Since build depends on compile, it will actually try to do a compile. Since compile depends on init, it will call init. So it will create the folder structure, compiles the Java files, and then copy all of this, and then finally build the build the war file, and then all the way to deployment. In one single step, it will do everything automatically. You can automate this guy. Init stands for just initialization. You can call it anything. Any of all these target names, you can call it anything. You can call it initialization, or you can say first step. But these are standard and targets that typically industry uses. On any questions? I know this is like a faster version of it. Definitely faster version of it. Okay. But
So
we will
XML,
not be
it's an
using.
XML file, right?
Sorry,
It's an XML file, right?
it's an XML file.
So that Ant software really runs through it. It's got some JSON type file reader, and then reads it up and processes them, right?
Where you mean this one?
No, this whole XML, this file,
Uh-huh.
this Java training Venkat something.
Okay.
This whole file actually. This file is really processed by this is the input for the Ant, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, Ant takes it and processes it and gives me this thing and deploys it.
Exactly. It will do everything. That's how
So
you.
that's all about mostly. That's the synopsis of Ant, right?
Exactly. That's how.
Okay.
So I know I just went. I just flew by. So it's like a pretty fast forward version of it. But that's what it is, because we will not be using Ant. This is pretty old style. Okay. There
The
are
main companies are with Ant actually.
Huh?
Ant is still very common.
Ant is very common. I agree. Again, it depends on the companies, right? So it's there. It's there in a lot of companies still. Okay, but it's pretty old. At least 12, 13 years old, I think. No, a little more maybe. Okay. Krishna, share your thoughts on that. So he just did 2 days back, it seems. The other day he was trying to show me this his Ant file and all, right? So hey, did you watch my video and look at it, or you didn't have to just?
No, I didn't watch.
Okay.
I just had to double click and it built everything and it's
Exactly.
built.
Did you understand now? Little more.
Yeah, much better. Yeah, a
Okay.
lot more. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So look at this one, web application structure and Ant. I think this is the video that you wanted to look at it. I talked pretty detail, and I actually all of this I coded it, like how I've been coding. I don't pre-code and show it. I actually code in front of you guys, right? So I actually did Ant also that way. So you can watch this guy and probably this guy also. There is another important topic here called logging.
So you coded means you coded that XML, right?
Yeah, coded that XML.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So that's about it. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Okay. But please go back and look at it, because once you understand Ant, actually here, just to show you guys how we used to do before Ant, I actually did it just for fun. I think I did it manually, and then before Ant, we used to have some solutions that are operating system dependent, like in command prompt, right? In command prompt, Windows command prompt, you can create a batch file, .bat file or .cmd files, right? So using which you can do pretty much all of this. Okay, but it doesn't work in Unix. This ant is completely built in Java, so it's operating system agnostic. So it works everywhere. I highly recommend you watch it, but not on the mainstream. Okay, so don't spend time probably now. You jump into the next topic. Before I talk about the next build tool, I want to give you another probably another what do you call 15-20 minutes tour of Maven. Here, Maven also, I'm not going to spend too much time, but I'll show you very right videos here because I want to jump into building the application, introduce that one. Okay, so please spend some time watching this one as well, right? See here. So Maven, these are some of the topics that I don't spend time on every batch. You need to understand why. That is why I'm able to, in every batch, I'm able to introduce something new. The reason is because some of these side topics, I talk about it, I talk in depth, make a video and put it in the library so I don't have to revisit again. Okay, so watch it here for very in-depth details, but I'll give you some introduction. If you don't have any questions, anybody has any questions? Let's spend a few minutes and see how everybody is doing. Everyone is sleeping as I see it. Yeah.
No,
No,
I'm not sleeping. That's
I'm just
I'm just joking.
kind of suggestion or kind of.
Go ahead, Antenna. You're saying something? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, I mean, with the build tools, don't you think that it's good to just give a highlight about logging? Because I think from now on we should try at least to exercise the logging and all that. What do you think? It's just my suggestion.
Definitely. Logging is logging and debugging. These are another important topics. Okay. Logging and debugging are another important topics. See here. But
so. What is logging?
logging is that if something goes wrong in production, okay, you clicked on create a new customer, you entered all the details and then click on save, but it's not saving. You're getting some error. So a customer called you and say that, hey, what is going on here? What did you code? Okay. And then he yelled somebody and somebody else yelled at you and then you wanted to find out what's going on. So where do you go now? So you can't debug. You can do something called debugging and remote debugging if you're in Eclipse, but this happened in production. So what do we do? Well, that is when your logging comes into picture. So like how you have been doing this to see how your code works, you've been doing system.out.println, system.out.println. That's all going into console, right? Right here. But you want all of this precious information you want all of that information to go into some files so that you can go back and look at it. Oh, when user called, hey, the first question is, when did you do this? Okay, I did it yesterday at 6:45 p.m. Okay, now let me go to a file and see what's going on. If there is an exception, the whole exception stack trace, you want to put it into the log file, meaning you don't want to lose any of that information. All of that information is going to be useful to debug or to understand what the problem is and what's going on there. And it helps you with the solution, right? So for that, nobody uses exception.print stack trace or system.out.println, we actually use solid logging mechanism. So one of the logging tools that we have here in Java world is called log4j.
Oh, that login. Yeah, you told us before.
Okay, called log4j. Here, if you configure log4j, all of your proper every step, every important step you can log in. See here how Tomcat people are nicely logging it. If they're saying starting servlet engine, pivotal, TC runtime, they're saying that deployment configure descriptor. See here, this is what they're looking at. And then they're saying that starting protocol handler, at least one jar was scanned for TLDs, yet contain no TLDs. So all of this, you are very detailed information they're giving, right? So when you write your application also, you want to give as detailed information as possible, and you want to log all of them, meaning you want to persist all of them into files so that you never lose them. Okay. Yes, we should talk about it, but again, we need to talk about more important topics, the core of it, which is Spring, Hibernate, JPA, web services, and then incorporate all of them into the bigger picture, into the eShop, right? So we have to talk about it. So,
Yeah.
okay. But I talked about it. I talked about it extensively, and I did it actually. So these are the topics. This is one of those topics. It's a side topics, right? These are all side topics. It's required. If you ask me, absolutely it's required. Okay. But when you go for interviews, does anyone ask about log4j? Nobody, right?
They might.
Sorry?
Venkat, what happens, some people, they after asking all these things, they want to test your reality. Well, if you have worked, you not only know the syntaxes and every major things, which you might well have learned from a book or a school,
Right.
but they will try to test you how real your experience is.
Right.
And they do ask all those side issues.
I agree.
Okay, what editor nuances on the Eclipse?
Right.
What have you done on the Eclipse? Those kinds of things do come by.
I'm not denying that. Absolutely. That's why you need to be familiar. That's where this guy helps actually. We talked about log4j here.
Okay. I see your point.
So,
these are service functions.
right.
What you're saying right now, these are service functions to the entire thing that we are learning from you.
Right.
So obviously, yeah, that's okay.
So yeah. Now about Maven. Briefly, I'll spend the rest of the time talking about Maven. So I showed you how Ant works. You configured every single thing. Where is your source file? Where do you want to put your, once you compile the classes, where do you want to put class files? And where do you want to put your configuration files like XMLs, .xml files, .properties files? Where do you want to put them? And in what order do you want to do it? First, you want to create the folder structure. That's where we did init, and then compile the Java classes. And if you have any tests, run them, right? So you are creating an individual Ant target for each one of them, each one of these tasks, okay? Tests. And then once all the tests are passed, then create a WAR file, okay? Or no, you actually do a build, which will bring the XMLs and put it into WebINF folder, bring the .class files and put it into WebINF classes, brings the jar files and put it in WebINF lib, all of that. And then finally, you construct the WAR file, and then finally you deploy them. So you have to configure every single thing here, and you need to specify which jar files. Let's say I'm using a fancy framework called, let's say, Spring. Okay. So Spring internally depends on several other jar files. Spring internally depends on, let's say, Spring itself uses some logging, right? So Spring uses log4j, for example. Spring uses some of the Apache's commons jar files, like a commons lang.jar. So let's say you want to introduce Spring into your application, but Spring internally depends on 10 jar files. You need to bring every single jar file and put it somewhere and configure in one of your AND targets and say that, hey, this is where all my dependent jar files are. So go copy all of them and put it into webinflib. You need to specify every single thing in AND. It's a highly configurable build tool. But what Maven did is, recently meaning Maven has been there for the last at least 7 years, 8 years. At least I've been using for the last good 7 years, I believe. Yeah, or maybe 6 years. Maven is also a build tool, but it depends on a principle called convention over configuration. Convention over configuration. You get dizzy sometimes to look at your ANT file. It's so big, configured, every single thing in the system. But Maven says that, we've been using ANT for more than a decade, and we have definitely learned what the best principles are. So why to reconfigure with every single project? So why don't we follow that convention? So some people can argue that it's hard to configure it. Agree with you guys. But if you follow certain convention, and it's intentionally made hard to really configure it, because you don't need to. You just follow the best conventions or best approaches. Best approaches have been adopted as conventions. You follow them, and then you don't need to configure all of this individual ANT targets. The whole life cycle of building the application is specified by Maven itself. They call goals. These are again by convention too. You don't have to define anywhere. Maven comes with it. So what Maven brings to the table is the concept of convention over configuration. Less configuration or zero configuration, and let's follow the conventions, and you don't have to do anything. Everything works out of the box. Beautiful concept, makes our life much easy. And it also brings one more revolutionary concept called transitive dependencies. It's called transitive dependencies or transitive dependency management or dependency management. So it does the dependency management by pulling the dependent jars transitively. Let me repeat that slowly and explain what I mean by that. So your application depends on Spring. Let's say Spring version 3.2. Okay? You depend on Spring 3.2. Spring 3.2 version depends on 10 more jar files. Well, you don't have to download, you don't have to go to internet and download these 10 jar files because you're Spring depending on them. You don't need to. You just say that I'm depending on Spring 3.2. Okay? And what Maven does is, throughout the world, they manage this whole big repository across the world. Everybody, they maintain this called Central Maven Repository. Central Maven repository. Everybody, Spring team, Spring company, they will put the jar files here. Hibernate people, they'll put the jar files here. JBoss people, they'll put the jar file here. Sun people, they put the jar file here. Oracle people, they put the jar file here. Every company, Apache puts all the jar files here. Everybody puts their jar files. And not only that, when they build those jar files, they will say that, hey, my Spring 3.2 jar files depends on these 10 other jar files. So when your application depends on Spring 3.2, you just have to mention that I depend on Spring 3.2. And all the jar files that it depends on will be brought by Maven automatically. So it will try to fetch the Spring 3.2 jar file from Central Maven repository and then says that, hey, do you depend on any other, I'm trying to fetch you. Do you depend on any other jar files? Oh, yes, I'm depending on these jar files. Okay, log4j, I'll pull you also because Spring needs you. Hey, by the way, I'm trying to pull you. Do you depend on any other jar files? Oh, you depend on this jar file. Okay, I'll go pull this guy. Every jar file, while it is pulling from the Maven repository, it asks, hey, I'm pulling you. Do you have any dependencies? If so, I'll pull them also. So it's a transitive dependencies. You pull one jar file, you just say that you depend on certain jar file, and if that jar file depends on another jar file, and that jar file depends on several other jar files, and those jar files depend on several other, it goes to nth level and it pulls all of them. You don't need to go and Google all over and then say that, okay, Spring depends on these 10 jar files. Okay, I'll go get them. And then Hibernate depends on the same jar file, and Hibernate depends on some other jar files. Hey, looks like I have a conflict here. So you figure out, okay, conflict exists in Maven also when same jar is two different modules depend on the same jar files. Then we'll talk about that later. But this beautiful concept called dependency management, automatic dependency management, by pulling the jar files transitively without you knowing. You don't have to know that Spring depends on 100 jar files. You just say that you depend on Spring. So, and then the Central Maven repository, that's another beautiful concept. Okay, and everybody is putting, when they build the jar files now, you don't have to go to Spring site to get the jar file. You don't have to go to Hibernate site to get the Hibernate jars. You don't have to go to Apache to get the Apache's jar files. You don't have to. Everybody is pushing into Central Maven repository. You go get from there. And then the first beautiful point is that convention over configuration. Very, 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 very less configuration. Okay, and the convention, as we said, what are the conventions? Well, the conventions are that all the source files should be, it follows some simple conventions, something like all the source files should be in this folder, source main Java. All the configuration files, like XML files and properties files, they should be source main resources folder. And all the test files should be in source test Java. And all the test configuration, unit tests, all the unit tests should be here in this folder. And all the unit test related configurations should be in source test resources. Now, you don't put your source files in SRC anymore. You have to follow the convention. You don't need to tell Maven where your source files are. You don't want to, because the rest of the world, all the millions of people are following this convention. And they intentionally made it complex to configure that or to be able to change that. They don't want you to change it, Maven developers. It's for a good reason. Don't think that it's highly restricted environment. Yes, it is. But it's based off of the best practices, and you just follow the convention, and Maven knows where to expect the Java files. Maven knows where to put it, where to put the that class files after the compilation is done. Make sense? And the way you create, see here, if you want to create a new Maven project, just say file, new, other, and look for Maven project. Okay, next. Okay, where do you want to pull it? We'll obviously use a default workspace location. There is another beautiful concept called archetype. There is another beautiful concept called archetype. Archetype. What archetype is nothing but, it's nothing but a template. It is exactly like a template. Meaning, if you want to build a web application, there is a template out there. You build it, you get it, you specify that archetype, and then it will automatically, it will build certain folder structure. And then let's say you're building a mobile app. Okay, let's say you're building an Android app. So there is a certain folder structure for that. A simple Java application, a standalone Java application, then there is a folder structure for that. Automatically, you get certain things automatically. Okay, and then you can create your own archetype and push it there. You can do that. Okay, then let's say a simple Maven. See, there is a quick start archetype. If I take that quick start archetype, and in Maven, the way it works is that you have this central Maven repository that's okay, somewhere in the cloud, somewhere in the web, right? And you have your own local Maven repository in your machine too. So you have your local Maven repository. You also have a repository in your machine. When you depend on a jar file, it will first go and check whether you have it in your local repository. If so, it will use it. If you don't have it, then it will go to public Maven repository and then fetches the jar file, and now it will store it. From the second time onwards, you don't have to go. Every time it does not go. Okay? So now, once you built, let's say you are building a simple Java-based application. Once you built this app, you want to push this again to your local Maven repository, so that some other application, either locally, maybe you are working on some other application that can depend on this application. At that time, you can specify that. So to pull any jar file from public Maven repository or even local Maven repository, what you need is these three things. What is your group ID? Okay, something like let's say Spring, right? Spring group ID could be org dot spring framework dot core, let's say. Okay, or org dot spring framework is a group ID, meaning which bundle do you belong to, which company, which org structure do you belong to. Okay, org dot spring framework. Within this, artifact is your which module are you talking about. Let's say I'm talking about Spring Core. And then which version are you talking about? There may be a lot of versions, right? So let's say 3.2. Okay, so this is how you specify group ID, artifact ID, and version number. Group ID, artifact ID, and version number. This is how you specify it. Now you are trying to build a Maven project locally, even you need to specify that as well, even for your own. So here you are not depending on anyone, you are building yourself, right? So tomorrow, once you build a jar file, if somebody depends on you, what do they have to specify? What group ID? Let's say my group ID, I'll say com.venkat or com.venkat. Okay, or com.training. Why me? Com.training. Okay, artifact ID, let's say Maven test, and my version number is, let's say, 1.0. Okay, and now I'll finish it up. Maven test. So whatever my artifact ID is will be taken as my Eclipse project. This is my Maven test. See here, I've used a quick start archetype, right? Source main Java. It automatically created a small package here, com training. This is my group ID dot this one. You can change all of this, but he just gave you this. All your unit tests will be here. Okay, and then see here, this is your pom.xml. This is your Maven XML. So like how you have a build.xml for your ant, here they call it project object model, pom.xml. So here you are specifying that my whatever the artifact that I am building, for that, this is my group ID, this is my artifact ID, this is my version number. My packaging is a jar file, meaning I'll be building as a jar file is what we are saying. And dependencies, look at it. This is how you specify the dependency. My group ID is JUnit. My artifact ID is JUnit. Version number is 3.8.1. And then scope equal to test, meaning I don't need this jar file for compilation. I only need it when you run the unit test. That's what we are saying here. But this is pretty old version. And now I'll also show you where is my local Maven repository, right? So let's look for this is an embedded version. Okay, this is, oops, C users Venkat .m2 repository. This is my local Maven repository. Okay, and this is where all the artifacts get downloaded from. If you look at it, where is your JUnit? JUnit, right? JUnit 3. See here, the way it works is that first it will create a folder structure for your group ID, JUnit, and then it will create a folder structure for your artifact, and then it will create a folder structure with your version number, and then your artifact ID dash version number dot jar file. Okay, and then it will bring, the way transitive dependencies work is that when it pulls the JUnit jar file, it will ask its own POM file. Okay, and ask for hey, do you have any dependencies? JUnit, I'm pulling you. Do you have any dependencies? See here, it does not have any dependencies. But if it had any dependencies, it would have pulled it. Okay. Now what I'm doing right now is I'm deleting this whole JUnit. Okay. I'm deleting this guy. I'm deleting this guy. What I want to do is, okay, it's used. What I want to do is, now look at it, JUnit, I don't want 3.8.1, I want 4.12. See here, did we see 4.12 just now? Nope. 4.12.jar, it automatically downloaded from your public Maven repository and stored it into local Maven repository. Now let's say I want to 4.13, for example. 4.13 got downloaded just now. E looks like it doesn't, there's no version called 4.13. So I just tried 4.11. How about that? See, it downloaded 4.11. So that's how it works. And now 4.12. Yep. Okay. This is how we specify the dependencies. Any questions so far?
I have one question on what's the source and the target folders under the Maven dependencies?
This target source, we know that, right? Source main Java, source test Java. That is where, so this is where all of your Java files go. Real
There
files.
is one more source similar to that, or other target?
Yeah. So source main Java is where all of your Java files go. Source test Java is where all of your unit test files go. Target is where all of your dot class files will go. Once it gets compiled, that is where your dot class files will go. Do you want me to show you? Properties.
Okay,
Resource.
that's fine. That's fine.
No, let's look at
Just
it.
to know. All right.
Let's look at it. So you have your target, right? See here, com training maven test app dot class. Okay, and then target test classes. All of your JUnit test classes will be here. App test class. Okay, so makes sense, guys?
Yeah, so that one is the source main Java is before it's compiled, and then after it's compiled, it will be the source.
Source main
right?
Java will have .java files, the real source code.
Yeah, yeah.
Your
And
target will have
one
.class files, your binaries. Okay, when you build the jar files, you build only the only the class files, right? It will build from target.
Yeah.
Understand?
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I know it's too much information in one day, honestly. I agree. So what I want to do is, but I just went, so I did not even make your feet wet. Okay, see here, this is where I really went slow. Actually, I talked about what is a public Maven repository. Actually, you can get any jar file from here. Oh, I didn't talk about Maven repository. Search.maven.org. This is the actual Maven repository. Let's say Spring Core. Okay, so let's say we have a Spring framework, Spring-Core. Let's look for, see here, org.spring framework is your group ID, okay? And then your artifact ID is, for every dependency you need, what is your group ID? It's a grouping, that's all. What is your artifact ID? Meaning, what's your real module name? And then what is the version? So your latest version is 4.1.6. So let me click on that. So if you look at the Spring org.spring framework, okay, with this group ID, these many artifacts are there. Spring core. Oh boy. Let's say Spring core. So this is the jar file 4.1.6. If you want to look at all the releases, you can go all. This is 4.1.6. This is 4.1.5. This is 3.2.13. This is 4.0.9, 4.1.4, 4.1.3. You can get any jar files. You can actually go download the jar file also. See, I'm getting the download, but I never need to download the jar file and put it in my WebINF lib myself explicitly. I don't need to. I just specify this group ID, this artifact ID, this version number, and Maven is going to get it automatically without me having to do anything. And it's not only getting this jar file, it's transitively going to get every single jar file that it depends on, because it will look at its POM file. This is Spring's POM file, and Spring internally, Spring core library depends on Commons codec, it depends on Commons logging, it depends on log4j, it depends on jopt simple, and it depends on aspect jweaver. It depends on these many libraries, these many jar files. And it will not only bring each jar file, it's going to bring their dependencies as well. It will keep going on and on and on and on. That's the beauty of Maven. Okay? So without delay, with that brief introduction, what I wanted to do is, again, I highly recommend. This is not, again, main trunk. Okay? Definitely not the main trunk. For the people who are still working on these concepts, I want you to focus on the concepts, but at some point, please go back to these videos and understand the actual gist behind it. A lot of people come to the projects, they know, as Venkakrishna was saying, they know just right click, run as, they have no idea what's going on under the hood. Okay, I don't want to explain this in just 15-20 minutes, but I gave you a brief introduction. This is good enough for us to move forward. Even if you didn't watch it, you're going to be fine. But I highly recommend you watch them if you want to understand what's going on behind the scenes. Okay? That actually gives you a lot of confidence. Anyways, so what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to show you, I want to build this eShop like a Maven based application now. But for that, let's check one small thing, whether we have a OJDBC. Let's check in a central Maven repository whether OJDBC 6, do we have it? This is OJDBC 14. Com.oracle, OJDBC. It might work, we can check. Okay, let's go ahead and check it. So now what my goal is, I want to convert this eShop to a Maven-based project, and then I want to introduce Spring. Okay, I mean, definitely not today, but I want to convert this into a Maven-based application. So this is how I wanted to do it. So let's leave this eShop as is, and let's build one more Maven-based project. But here, what I want to do is, I don't want to take a quick start archetype. I want a web app archetype, meaning I'm building a web application. So com training eShop 2. Let me call this eShop 2, version number 1.0, or I'll call it, yeah, that's fine. Okay. So finish. And then let's leave eShop as is. This is the older style, and this is eShop 2. Okay. And now look at it. I created this as a web-based application, right? Source, main, web app. See here, web.inf, web.xml. So, but it's using old style of web.xml. So let's get all of these. Let's get our web.xml. Let's copy and paste this guy here. And then Java resources, let me create a source folder. I'll call it.
What did you do? It went very fast. You copied the web.xml from eShop to eShop 2, right?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I went very fast.
No, it's okay.
I copied.
Just verbally tell it. It's fine. You
yes,
copied from eShop to eShop.
From eShop to eShop 2.
Cool.
Okay.
That's
it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. In fact, maybe I should have left it as is. Yeah. No, maybe I should have shown you. I think that's
okay, Venkat. Never mind. It's okay.
That's fine.
It's fine. Yeah, as you told me, it's fine.
So now,
so what is the purpose that you copied that into this?
No, I wanted to move all of this to because it has our servlets configuration and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to move all the files here.
Okay.
Right. So I wanted to move. I wanted to have our JSPs here. I wanted to have our lib here. In fact, I wanted to copy all of this as is, and then, yeah. Right?
Can't we import the whole dynamic web project into Maven project?
The folder structure is different, right? Here we have source, but here we need all the source files should be in source main Java.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So new source folder, project name eShop 2. I wanted to say source main Java. This is where I want, the folder is already, do we have a source main Java already? Or I can't see it. So what I'll do is, let's go to navigator, eShop 2, source main web app. No, I don't see it. Folder called Java. So now, now I see it, source main Java. What I'll do is I'll copy these two packages as is into com eShop DAO and all of this. That's pretty cool. I think that's it. Maybe requirements and DB scripts. I don't need it for now. I think that's good enough. Okay.
It's showing red actually.
Yeah. We'll build one. So the first thing is we did not see we copied the jar files into web.inf lib, right? Actually we can't copy. We can't copy. We don't need to copy them into web.inf lib. What we need to do in our POM XML, we need to specify the dependencies because here we have 3 dependencies, right? What do we have? We have JSTL API and JSTL impl and then OJDBC6. So let's bring those dependencies. So how do we bring these dependencies? So as I said, each dependency will have three things. What are they? We can actually copy from here. It's let's look for JSTL.
Venkat, is this dependency the same dependency that you mentioned before, where which is the merit of Maven, that it really understands recursive dependencies?
Yes.
And pulls it up. But
You
then
got it.
you're manually identifying the dependencies here.
No, we need to tell. See, we directly depend on JSTL 1.2, right?
Okay.
We directly depend on JSTL 1.2. So I'm saying Maven that, hey, I'm depending on 1.2. That's all I'm saying here.
Okay.
I'm not
So
doing
first
anything.
level dependency. So first degree you have to say,
Exactly.
and then later on it'll recursively get it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
Makes sense. Yeah. Thanks.
No problem. But for some reason it is not. So let's go to C users
We
Venkat.
should add the OJDBC also, correct?
Yeah, we'll do one at a time. First, let's fix this guy, JavaX, servlets, JSP, JSTL, JSTL 1.2, E. See here, it did not download for some reason. So maybe we got the wrong one from JSTL API. Let's look for that. Sweet. See, it actually, we just copy this guy as is. Copy. I got the wrong dependency. Now you want to take a look at this guy now. See here, JSTL, this one I can safely delete it. But JSTL API, see here, it brought it. Okay. And now, what's the next one? I think JSTL API, JSTL impl. Let's look for JSTL IMPL. Very good. We have the JSTL IMPL too in the central Maven repository. Not you will learn later on, probably on your own, not from me, in your own projects, that not every company will put it there. In that case, you'll have to add your own repositories and all that stuff. There's several ways of doing it. Okay, JSTL API.
Venkat, this JSTL has API and other couple of jar files that we have added, correct? So in order for me to get the URI for each HTML tag, how did you do it? The other day, I think you showed it, but I kind of missed it.
You mean for the each JSTL?
Yes.
Okay. So what you need to do is you open one of these jar files, like let's say JSTL API. Is it API or repository org glassfish web JSTL impl 1.2. See here, c.tld.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, here, probably edit. It's ugly. You need to open up in proper editor, and then there will be a URI here. See here? That's the URI. You got it? That's for C. That's for core.
Cool. Okay.
Okay. So once I added these dependencies, what you need to do is right-click on it, Maven, and then update project. Okay. Now it's still complaining about the method get all customers of type customer DAO JDBC impl must override a superclass method. I know I've never told you, but anyone happens to know why this one is? It's slightly tricky. This customer DAO, this is an interface, and these are all the classes. These are all the methods that this interface has, right? So when you write an implementation class, you can say at override. You can only use at override for classes, not for interfaces, until JDK 5. Starting from JDK 6, they said that it makes sense to use it for both. When you're overriding from your top class method, or when you're implementing your interfaces method. In both the cases, you can do it. So by default, your POM uses JDK 5. So you need to configure it a little bit to make it work with JDK 7. You need to say that, hey, my JDK is JDK 6 or JDK 7. Okay. I'll just borrow it from my own code base somewhere. Let's say I can borrow it from any Spring MVC. I think. See here. You need this after dependencies. Your final name is eShop2. That's your WAR file name. Now you are saying that, hey, I'm using this Maven plugin, Maven compiler plugin, and I'm specifying that my source is 1.6, target is 1.6. In fact, we are using 1.7, right? So let's use 1.7 as our Java compiler. So now, after you change this one, Maven update project. Okay, now look at it. All of these are taken care. Everything is good now, except one red. Okay, that is faceted project problem, Java version mismatch. Okay, your Eclipse is having a difficulty or conflict with your Maven version. So your Eclipse will automatically give you certain project facet. Eclipse has certain thing, a small thing called project facets. Okay, here you will specify what version of servlet spec are you using it. In fact, we are using servlet spec 2.5, right? And then what version of Java are you using? See, by default, it's using 1.5. So we are saying 1.7. So cannot change the version. First, let's change this to 2.3, and then I changed it to 1.7. Now I can change this dynamic web module version also to 2.5.
Why 2.3?
Oh, it's a
why 2.3? It was supposed to be 2.5, right?
Right. I mean, it's a default. We got this one from Maven archetype, right? The Apache archetype. So those people have written this ages back. That is why.
Okay.
So
even if you constructed the dynamic web project with 2.5, this is the place where you could change it and regress it back to 2.3, right?
You can, yes.
Okay.
You can.
Okay, thanks.
So now there is an Eclipse, one more Eclipse oddity or Eclipse kind of defect. So here, dot class path, no dot project. Dot project. Where is your wanted to do a clean guy. Yeah, Eclipse issues. Let's go to dot settings and then let's go to facets.core.xml. See here, JSTL Java 1.7 is good. JST dot. So when you try to change there, it doesn't work. Don't ask me why. It's always the same issue. Let's these are the problems with the Eclipse WTP web tool project issues and facets. Okay, looks like no issues really. Let's restart Eclipse and then let's clean up a project and then let's update Maven one more time, and these are the usual Eclipse issues. Okay, now let's try going to project facets. Okay, now 2.5, everything is good. The problem is it held on to that 2.3 somewhere in Eclipse team. Sorry, Maven. Update project and do a force update of that one, doesn't matter. Okay, so you look at it, it's a standard thingy. You may be wondering, man, you did so many things. Well, I didn't.
Yeah, we kind of lost in between, like.
Yeah, I'll do it
figuring.
on one of your machines. So no big deal.
Yeah, yeah, that would help because
I'll do
we
it.
kind of.
Probably, not probably. For sure, I will log in tomorrow also. Okay.
Okay.
Or I can do it one more
That
time.
helps.
Venkat, your Maven tapes are very good though.
Yeah.
Your Maven tapes are fantastic. You know, last year I used it,
Sorry,
and
sorry.
that's a very nice one.
Too many people. I didn't understand. Sorry.
You know, if one follows your Maven tapes,
Okay.
the current batch, then one can really do it. That's very good. I used it last year, and I did it.
Right. Yeah, that's. I highly recommend that you watch it at some point. I mean, this one I'm going to help you with every one of you. It's no big deal. This is just Eclipse. What I did was a hack. It's not a direct thing. You shouldn't be doing it, but it's unfortunate. That's all.
No, but this is the preliminary binding that we are doing. It correct with your experience, you are able to figure it out, and I'm just thinking like how we would be able to do it.
It's you Google it or fail it 100 times.
It's buggy. It's buggy.
It's
buggy last year.
that's what happens, Jyoti. There's no, because this is like a old Arch type, okay, and depends on Eclipse itself is very highly plugin based architecture, right? There is a Eclipse plugin called WTP, Web Tool Project, okay. So that one has incompatibility with whatever the servlet spec that you have, and if I tried doing it, Eclipse facets here, I changing it, Eclipse didn't let me change it. Okay, so what I did here is that I went to Navigator and I went to the actual, sorry, not this guy, I think, no. Where is this guy? Yep, project face at core. So here I changed it. This is where whatever you see it here graphically, I showed you. This is
Mm-hmm.
exactly same thing in XML. It's whatever you do it here, Eclipse is going to store it somewhere. Eclipse will store all of these settings in dot settings file. Whatever you
Okay.
do,
So
these
you
are
went
the
back to
things.
the reference files and then modified it there.
Right. Dot settings is what you'll be looking for, and that class path. Whatever you do it in class path here, it will store it in that class path file. Very, very, very important. And all the project natures that you can give in Eclipse, they're all in dot project file. You can give a JavaScript nature, you can give a Java builder nature, it's a Java nature, Maven nature. Actually, what it's doing really by Mavenizing my project, it simply means that I'm giving a Maven nature to that. And Eclipse needs to have a certain plugin for that. But Spring Tool Suite automatically comes with it. The reason I use Spring Tool Suite is because if I use plain vanilla Eclipse, I have to get all of these plugins on my own. And it takes I'm deviating too much from the actual course. That is why I take Spring Tool Suite. You get it?
Yep.
So this one,
Yes.
how do I familiarize myself? By failing. You fail 5 times, sixth time you'll figure it out. I mean, it's the same thing for me also. Okay. But now so far we did we did the JSTL API and JSTL Impl, but we did not get one thing. What is that? OJDBC, right?
OJ.
So let's try getting OJDBC and see what happens. I'm thinking this one works.
No, but this is the central repository of Maven, correct? It
That is
should
right.
be having all the lower versions as well as the current versions, everything. Because
Um,
if it doesn't, how would it find all the dependencies for each of the versions that we are doing the binding?
the point is, not every company honors it. So they have their own Maven repositories. Spring has its own Maven repository. JBoss has its own Maven repository. Hibernate has its own Maven repository. So all of these companies have their own Maven repositories. But this is like a central Maven repository. At that point, if you want to point to a different Maven repository, you can specify your repository here. Hey, I want to point to JBoss Maven repository. Okay, you specify that here. Okay?
Okay.
So not everybody follows it. That's the problem, right? It's a most practical problem. Let's try running this guy. We'll quickly know if it works or not. So, and these are the practical problems. Once you join the companies, these are the issues that you will be running into. Okay. See, I did not get it. When I did this com oracle, this guy, it did not work.
Venkat, what about we just edit the dependency there and then just edit the version and it could try to pull?
It has to be there in the repository, antenna. It doesn't. If I say magical 11.2, then you build it, right? Where does it? It has to. It will try to pull it from the central Maven repository. There is no such thing called 11.2. You get it?
Yeah, yeah.
So let's say OJDBC 6 Maven. See, this is a perfect thingy. Look at it. Like how all the people ask. So it's better to add a new Maven repository to your project instead of installing it to your local Maven repository. See, this guy has put this guy here. Look at it. So they have their own repository. And this is where the OJDBC6 is. Got it? So these are all the practical issues. So OJDBC 14, let's say OJDBC 14. Let's see what happens actually. Yeah. No. OJDBC version 14. Why not? Repository OJDBC version 14. It couldn't find. I don't know why, but let's delete this guy completely, and then it tried pulling the 14 jar file. There is one more one more advanced way for me, people like me who can do it, but I don't want to go that route. That is the reason. Yeah, this is like install your own. This is how, if you already have your jar file, this is how you install your own jar file into Maven repository. You need to follow this to be able to do it. That's what I did almost every batch. Unit looks like OJDBC6 is not there as the Maven repository. So, let's, or we can try following this guy and see what happens. Okay, you have a different repository, and now you can say dependency. Let's see how it works. Now let's go here. Repository, OJDBC, nope. Oh, COM Oracle, right? Repository, COM Oracle, OJDBC6, 11.2.6, fantastic, worked. So Oracle has put it in a different Maven repository. Okay, we went there to get the Oracle jar file. Thank you. Okay, now I think we're done. We got everything that we need, and now I wanted to show you probably one last thing. Source test Java is missing. Okay, source. I'm creating one folder here. Or since you don't have any source test Java, see here, source main Java, this guy, you have source test Java, but we don't have any unit test classes at this point, so I removed it. And I want you to observe this one here, Maven dependencies. All the jar files that we put it here, they come under, it creates a library called Maven dependencies, and it will put it here. And then just click OK. And then finally do a one Maven update project. Okay, this is the best way to refresh everything there. And now that's it. Right click, run on server. It will automatically show you that. Choose an existing server and then eShop to finish. Let's see how it works. Yeah. So it failed because Jasper exception, unable to compile class for JSP. Why? Stack trace, default handler, Java error, the method get dispatcher type is undefined for the type HTTP servlet request. Okay. Index.jsp, web app, webinf, yeah. It's trying to go to index.jsp. Nope. We should remove this guy. And then web.xml. Yeah, everyone should go to /. Yep. And let's retry. Okay, the stack trace home.jsp.java. Okay. The method get dispatcher type is undefined for HTTP servlet request.
This one is eShop 2 and there is written eShop. So maybe
Where did we do that?
I saw there something.
You mean this one?
Yeah.
I mean, it will fail. Definitely, if you click on it, it will fail, but that doesn't matter, right? At this point, it doesn't matter, right? So it's actually saying that in the 52 in the generated Java file, with root cause unable to compile class for JSP, it's not able to compile the JSP because maybe my Java
We did
C.
not use the method.
Sorry?
We did not use the method get dispatcher type, correct? We used get request dispatch.
No, it's nothing to do with our code actually.
Okay.
I'm thinking it's definitely nothing to do with our code. I'm thinking something to do with Maven settings. Let's look at it. Maven update project. Let's see. Because your servlet container needs JDK to be able to compile it, right? Compile the JSPs get translated into servlets, and servlets then compiled, right? That's the life cycle, right? So somehow it's not able to compile it. Don't know why at this point, but let's see. Okay.
Does it have to do anything with the servlet API jar file?
Servlet API jar file. Huh?
Yeah. I mean, this JDK version, anyway, you have applied the advanced version. This is 1.7, so that shouldn't bother that to compile or produce any kind of exceptions. So I think this API jar file may do something with this now. I think.
Sure. Must be. Let's see if what's going on. Actually. Oh, you read it from here?
Yeah. No, I was expecting that actually API should be the problem there.
I had the same issue with conflicting servlet API versions. So
That is what can happen next.
effective POM. Let's look at effective POM. Okay, servlet API, Java servlet JSP, JSTL. But does it depend on actually?
But then JSP will be completely different, right? Than the servlet API. The Java X servlet API.
So your Tomcat is using different than. So I just changed my dependency to this and did a clean deploy. Problem went away. So servlet API, the standard servlet API could be what? I don't know.
What is your thought actually? How are you correlating it back to the exception what you're getting now?
I'm not.
Okay.
So I'm really not. That's the problem. I'm not connecting the dots.
Okay. I felt that because it's a problem with the servlet thing, I thought that API would be the one thing I would look into. That's my point of view.
It may work. That's my. But I'm trying to connect the dots. That's all. What exactly is going on?
I mean,
So
you mean to say this servlet JSP, JSTL can take care of that?
JSTL has got nothing to do with it, buddy. No.
Exactly.
It's JSTL has got nothing to do with it.
Then
So
who else can
But
take care of it?
the dependency for the servlet.
actually, Servlet API. So what we are doing? Servlet API.
Yeah. That's
It will be. Oh, let's look at this guy. Right click properties, Java build path. What libraries are we using here? Where is the server library? Where is the server library? Meaning add library. Where is probably, Maven works slightly differently. Server runtime, but we still have to say which, where you are working on, right?
But the server will take care, right? I mean, you're not explicitly put into as a library, isn't it? I mean, you're deploying the product on the server, then server should take care of no matter what, even if you have the library or not. I think like that.
Let's go here. So let's find out where this HTTP servlet is coming. This is my problem. See here, it is coming from here. So it is coming from, this is the right way to look at what exactly is going on under the hood, right? So what's bothering me is this one. So where HTTP servlet is a class of your servlet API, right? So where is this coming from? So it is coming from HTTP servlet class in where? So there you go. Maven dependencies, it's coming from servlet API 2.5.jar. Why? This is the problem with dependency. Okay. See here, servlet API 2.5. So, and why am I getting the servlet API 2.5 here? Because it is
You were using the Java server
it
module
is
something 2.5, right?
transitively depending on something else, right? So what do we depend on? We depend on this guy.
Archetype.
Not archetype, actually. It's pom.xml. So we depend on JSTL API, right? Let's go look for that. So this is the fun, actually. So these are the kind of problems that really makes you think, right? javax.servlet.jsp, JSTL, JSTL API 1.2. Let's look at it. So we depend on this guy. Now, this guy, let's look at this guy's dependencies. So what kind of dependencies do you have? This guy depends on javax.servlet, servlet 2.5. This is my style of identifying what the issue is. So the reason when you said I'm not connecting the dots is I don't want to somehow superficially go. I want to find out the root problem is. So we depend on this guy and this guy depend on servlet API 2.5. So we are shipping servlet 2.5 in our web app and deploying it into Tomcat 7.0, which automatically comes with a different version of servlet API. You see it? So what we will do is we can, in dependency, we can provide exclusions. So when we specify, sorry, not this guy. So what we'll say is, hey, you don't need to give me the, certain group ID, sorry, exclusion, and then please don't give me all the transitive dependencies, but this guy. Okay, I'll get my own one. So please don't give me this guy. Which one? Java X.Servlet. Let's see.
But will if you define your own, will it override the existing this 2.5 thing?
One step at a time.
Okay.
Let's update project. Okay. Now let's go to Maven dependencies for a second. Let's find out ourselves. Rohit, where is your Maven dependencies? Libraries, where is your Maven dependencies? Now, you still got your Servlet API, right?
Right.
Why did we get the Servlet API? Because, yeah, I thought we specified now that we don't want Java X.Servlet API. Okay, is it possible someone else also depends on it? So JSP API 2.1. Oh, I don't want this guy too, actually speaking. So let's specify this. Java X.Servlet on JSP and JSP API. So please don't bring JSP API also. Let's see what happens. And let's bring it, because server automatically provides it. So
There is a J missing in the Servlet JSP.
thank you, buddy. Did I copy as is? No. Okay. I appreciate it. Let's stop the server for a second. It's bothering every time. Right? Still we have a Servlet API 2.5. So let's look for Glassfish JSTL impl. In fact, repository, is that com.sun or com.oracle? No. org.glassfish. Huh?
org.glassfish.
JSTL impl 1.2. Okay, let's look at this guy's POM.
Yeah.
And see what this guy is up to. Right, we know the fundamentals. There you go. There you go.
Okay.
There you go. So we don't want this guy. So we don't want both of them. We want our container to provide all of them, and I don't want to provide it. Exclusions. Let's specify the exclusions. Not this
When
guy.
you want container to provide, do you need to explicitly mention again, or a container will take care on runtime?
1 second, buddy. 1 second. No need of version, but let me now. Okay. Now, no dependency, right? Dependency exclusion. One more exclusion. Okay. We don't want version. Sweet. Now we'll get some compilation errors. We'll deal with it. I'll tell you. Exclusions. Okay. Yeah. Come on. What's the deal here?
The dependency is not needed.
Dependency, group ID, artifact ID
There is
version, exclusions.
extra dependency is there. You can remove that.
Yep. Yeah. Nope, something else. So this dependency is closed here. Dependency. What do you?
Oh, you don't have dependencies. Dependencies. Oh, that's there.
Okay, let's find out. This dependency is good. Let's find out this dependency whether yeah. It's Eclipse. It's one of those RATs. Now we'll get the compilation errors, and that's kind of a fair. Let's look at it. I think this really is fun. Okay, now let's look at the Maven dependency for a second. Very cool. Now, these are the problems that I like it. In Google, okay, maybe in the next class I'll talk about the different topic. The disadvantages of Maven, there is something called, if you Google Maven dependency hell, you will find a lot of articles on Maven dependency hell. Okay, so on one side, I love Maven, but if you go on the other side, these are the problems. I did not know genuinely, okay? I did not know genuinely that in front of you, I just copied and pasted javax.servlet.jsp, sorry, yeah. I want the JSTL API, I want the JSTL impl. So these are the two things that I need. Right? Everything on the fly. So we Googled together, and I came to know that, I need the JSTL API and JSTL impl. Right? So I don't need, mine is a web application and HTTP servlet. Look at it. So my HTTP servlet is part of Servlet API. And Servlet API will be provided by your Servlet engine. All these while, did we ever have to, when we did this eShop, right? Did we have to provide any jar file that has HTTP servlet? We did not have to, because this is a dynamic web project. So it is going to be living in Tomcat. So Tomcat automatically provides it. So what happens here is that right-click properties, when you go to this runtime here, so your server runtime is going to provide all these jar files. Look at it, all of these jar files. Servlet API jar file. Look at it. So Servlet API is where I'll show you. Let's go to in a different view, probably Java view. Let's go to, see here, web app libraries. These are the web app libraries, but I want server libraries, server dependency. So these many jar files that your server automatically provides it, your Tomcat automatically is providing it. So did we know that this is the Servlet API? This is where your javax.servlet.http or HTTP servlet class is, your HTTP session interface, HTTP servlet, cookie, HTTP utils, okay? All of this and your request dispatcher, okay? Everything comes from here. See your request dispatcher here, your servlet, your generic servlet, all of this is coming from this jar file, which is provided by your server runtime. Your server automatically provides it. But we do not know, I mean, I do not know also that when we depend on this JSTL API and JSTL impl, it automatically brings these two jar files that are not compliant with your runtime environment, which is your Tomcat. That's the problem. We solved it without really blindly Googling it. So we immediately found out that, hey, where is this guy? So, I mean, of course, we got the hints, but where are you getting it? So it immediately pointed us to the Maven dependency. Oh, wait, why are you getting the Servlet API? Because we are not directly dependent on it, but indirectly, you got it that when it brings the JSTL impl and JSTL API, it will go to the POM and then brings its dependencies also. If you can specify the exclusions in cases where you don't want it, then you can say that, hey, you know what, please, I don't want these dependencies. I like all of these dependencies, but you are giving me trouble because you are confronting with my own jar file, so please don't do it. Please don't bring it. So you can do it, and now your application works just like before. Okay, so add to cart, it should work. If you're done shopping, no. Let's add one more. Done shopping, click here. Hey, your order has been placed. This is your order number. Click here to go to home page. So your application works just fine. But there is a small glitch. It's going to eShop. It has all the eShop references. Look at it. So it's going back and forth. So what we need to do is you need to change all the references to eShop too. I think that's not a big deal. You can do it. Right. So this one is eShop 2. Okay. Otherwise, it will go to this one also /eShop 2. Shopping cart here. It's actually you can use something else to avoid that one. But let's look at any other anywhere. We're saying nope. I think this is all good. Any questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not about Maven because
we can now remove eShop. Actually, simply just leave eShop 2 and restart your server, and everything should work magically. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Not about what's that? That looks like my screen.
Sorry, we are still here on my machine.
Okay. Because I got same kind of screens, that's why. Anyway, so see what happened was I wrote 3 servlets.
Mm-hmm.
This is a servlet thing, but there's a silly problem that's coming up. See, when I'm executing the delete servlet with /delete, it's not even finding the page. When I'm putting some other word, it's finding it, and it's happening occasionally. All the time, it's not happening. Want to take a look?
Yeah, is it happening now?
Yeah, it may happen now. Okay, give me the
eShop 2 has been checked in, by the way. Maybe I should have renamed it as eShop Maven or something like that. So.
And also JSPEL 2015.
Yes.
That one was a problem case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Checked in, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you can see my screen now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, see, this is my delete servlet, okay? It works.
Which one?
This is my web. You can see it, right?
Sure.
Web.xml. And over here I've got this delete stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and index, let me choose a, see, this is my index.
Sure.
.html.
Sure, sir. Okay.
Okay. Now, when I'm going here,
mm-hmm.
Okay, let me, what was the name of the project? Is, one second. It is What the hell? It's 5, number 5. Okay, good. So let me pull up any of these things, and I'm going to modify from there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 5. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and let me do delete.
Mm-hmm.
That means let me pull up this guy.
Sure.
Okay, see what's happening? It's not even finding anything.
Okay.
Like it should at least tell something like this. It's not even doing that. But when I'm doing
No, can you go to delete for a second?
yeah, I'll go there. See?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you give me the control? Can you click
Yeah,
on? Hey, it's saying 500. See that HTTP status code 500 means much better than 404. So
yeah.
understand this. This is it recognized your URL, Sean. It recognized it, and you are getting 500. 500 meaning internal server error, meaning it is going all the way to the server, but you are having issues on the server. So you should look at on the server side, not on the client side. Client has no clue. So it is going to the
Okay, go to the
period.
server.
It is going to delete, period. Okay. Let me reiterate that. It's because you are getting HTTP 500 means internal server error. So it's not 404. You are saying that, /delete gives me at least this one. No, this is horrible. This is
Horrible.
404, meaning,
Yeah.
hey, I couldn't find what do you mean by, delete 2. But delete means it identified the appropriate servlet on the server side,
Okay.
but 500, okay?
Okay, now what I'm suggesting is, see in the web.xml, if you just change it to delete 2 and run it with delete 2, it'll work. Like what I'm saying is, just put 2 over here, and then run it with that, it'll work.
Okay.
Okay, save it.
We don't need to do that.
Don't need to.
Actually, we can find out what's.
Okay, you want to dive
What else did you do?
Nothing.
What would be the immediate thing to do? Tell me. The immediate thing is that I want to try to put a system out here to see if I'm going to do get, right?
I did that before, and I didn't get. See, it's this here itself. Printer out is itself responding. Is supposed to respond to my browser screen, if not to the console. So that itself is a test. So
we will talk about that one, but I want to see the system out
sure.
print line. I'm in delete.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Since we're not really. I'm in delete. Perfect. So you are coming here, Sean. So you know for a fact that until this point everything is good. So it's just a matter of figuring it out. Okay.
But why is it not doing a response.getWriter? This response.getWriter response from doGet method. That's just not even going to the database. It's just a response, and that's not happening. Response to the browser is not happening.
Audio flushing. Just give me 1 second, huh? Ouch. Sorry.
No. I know what you thought. You saw that IDSTR, right?
Nope, I didn't think that far yet. Let me just do a quick thingy. Okay, let's look at it a little deep. Anybody has any? Oh, somebody texted it. Someone
texted it.
Okay. Okay. So 1 second, guys. Sorry. Anyone looked at it? I've been distracted for a second. So can you give me the control one more time?
Yeah, take it.
I want to look at the code a little more closely.
Yeah,
so it's a lot good things. So it went all the way. So print writer, response dot get writer. That's good. Out dot write. HTML body h1 body HTML. What's this one?
That's the delete activity. If you give some other name, delete to, it does the delete. That much I've seen.
Actually, after you flush out to the browser, actually nothing happens. So
Really?
here you flushed out, right? You flushed out to the browser. I didn't look at that one.
But for all my programs, I'm flushing out for just
Uh,
for.
it's actually, what do you want to do? Response from do get from method. What is your goal though? What do you want to do it here?
My goal is to really do the delete. My goal is to
Exactly.
really
Do it
make it
first.
work.
Do it first. Simple. So do your stuff and then give me the confirmation. So you
But
do this
but
guy.
for other programs, but just by changing the name, it's working.
No, name has got nothing to do with it.
I've done it. I will show you the delete too.
Okay. Then I'll probably
Okay, do it. Okay, do it with delete. I just want to make sure whether there is nothing,
Mhm.
no reserved word, there's no keyword as /delete. Whether it
Come
has
on,
got
we
anything
just
to
proved it. It's coming here. It's
coming
going
here.
all the way here. You just now
Yeah,
you're doing a delete customer and doing it, right? So now do it again. See? Now you got the number format exception. Come on, Sean. It's in like
yeah,
request that get parameter of ID. So tell me,
that's fine. That makes
give
sense.
me one ID. I'll prove you right now.
Yeah, hang on a second. Give me
One
the
reasonable ID, 81.
no, not that. I'll just tell you in a minute. 103.
Okay, use 103 and click on it. And then you go to database, it's gone. If the code is correct.
Okay.
No.
No, the code is correct because yeah, it's gone.
Yeah.
So it has got nothing to. So you're saying with the flushing?
Absolutely nothing. It's your response got flushed. So your out.write, you're actually flushing out, right? So you are actually open a pipe to the browser and flushing the stuff out.
I see.
You getting it?
But yeah, I see. But that's working for. But it's working for these guys. This is my ad customer. Everywhere I'm flushing it first just for testing whether it's arriving there or not. And everywhere it's working. Only there it's not working. And with that name, delete name. That's what I find weird.
No, definitely nothing to do with the name. Nope.
Okay.
It's
I can buy that. It's nothing to do with the name.
nothing to do with the name.
But the point is the flushing thing. Well, it's not flushing on this. I mean, it's flushing. It's flushing here too before the real activity, database activity. It's working for this.
You're doing a post, right?
This one is a post. This is a post. On that, it's a
get.
Yeah.
So we're actually trying to get it from. I mean, the semantically, right? You're actually posting the form to the to this one. Nope. There is no.
Okay. There could be one more.
There is no logic other than that. Nope.
Okay, there's one more thing. You know the other thing is there is no index.html right now. The index.html is a post. So it's going to the get. So it's going to the post and there's nothing over there. That's why maybe. You know? Since index.html is a do post method, that's why it's driving that to the post area. Okay. And in post area there's no activity. That's why it's not doing. But when you gave, hang on, Jyoti, hang on. It's your theory. I'm getting there. But when you gave delete, it went to web.xml. Web.xml tied up delete with the servlet, and that brought it here. But it's not working with okay. Anyway, you guys tell me what. Jyoti, tell me what to do.
No, what I'm saying is in your index.html, you are posting it to the list servlet, correct?
Hang on a second. Index.html. Oh, yeah. Posting it to the list.
It's not to the delete.
Oh, yeah. That's correct. I didn't see that. So
I didn't see it either. For that matter.
Correct.
I did not realize too.
But anyway,
I'm just listening to you. That's all. It's without coming to conclusion one way or the other. I'm just. But yeah, that's a good catch. Okay.
But anyway, we see what I gave initially was this thing.
Sure.
This thing should invariably bring it to. This thing should invariably bring it to your do-get.
That's right.
Okay.
Correct.
But okay, this is failing because of good reasons.
Right.
Okay. Now with the question. Okay, so now it seems that it's working. I think the problem has gone.
It should work.
It might be with
all the
that
time.
flushing thing.
All the time and consistently. There is no reason, for not working, Sean. Any day, tell me if it doesn't work. We'll look at it together.
Okay. Yeah, I think fine then. No problem. I have no issues then. Thank you very much, everybody.
No problem, sir. Anyone else? Man, you've been patient.
Venkat, one question.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
For the log4j, what is the default logging level? So that it won't create any kind of overhead.
So a lot of questions in the world, in the real world, the answer is depends. Do you know that? Huh.
Okay, so it's based on
the answer for 9 out of 10 questions in the real any architectural questions, the answer would be immediately depends, unfortunately. So
no, but default also would depend.
No, the default is basically like for all the production environments, like for .NET applications
So,
and all, you will keep it as at the info level, correct?
It's,
so, is there anything?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Is there anything equivalent for log4j, like info level? So that,
log4j has exact same logging levels: trace, debug, info, warn, error, fatal. Exact same thing.
okay.
Log4j is language independent.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, log4j is for Java, but I'm sure they are there for .NET too.
Yeah.
Okay. All of these concepts are there in .NET. So, to answer your question in a little less political way, I mean, my first answer was politically correct way, because that was the right answer actually. Now I'll give you more pragmatic answer probably. So I would say war is a safer bet. If you don't want to, the reason I wanted to go back to depends answer is because how much logging do you have? And is that a batch application or a web-based application? In a batch application, I wanted to go to, I don't mind going to debugger info. If it's a web-based application and if you are writing a lot of things, then probably warn is a good start. And then also in a web-based applications, what you can do is you can dynamically configure that. You can dynamically configure it to be while the server is running. You can change it to debug. You can change it to info. And in my current company, I'm seeing little more niftiness there, where you can configure it. They wrote log4j server configuration servlet or something, and then you can go there, and then you can dynamically set the debug levels for each class that you have in the web application. So that's so I wanted to say war or info. If you don't have, if you're not really flooding your log files, probably info is okay. But you have too much information going on, and if you want absolute, no latency at all, then probably warn will be a good bet. And I've seen root logger, and oh, by the way, this is again Jyoti, to that root logger. There is something called root logger in log4j, right? So you set your root logger as error. A guy like me, I even want to go to the level. I mean, maybe I'll leave the root logger as warn, but I will specifically something like a Spring framework and Hibernate and this kind of stuff. I don't want warn. I don't want debug and infos, right? But my classes, let's say I'm working for com.venkat. So I'll just say that log4j.category.com.venkat equal to debug or info. So all of my classes and sub packages here, I want info, but everything else I want warn. That is the right approach, in my opinion.
Okay, got it.
I don't know whether you got the answer. That
Yeah. Yes.
you got it, right? So the root logger should be one, and then your company specific specific ones to be info.
Yeah.
Put your base package as info, so that you are getting the best of both worlds, I believe, right?
Yeah.
You're not flooding with your Hibernate junk in it, and at the same time, you're not compromising on your own logging.
Yes.
I think it's a good trade-off.
Thanks.
Okay, that was a long class. So I didn't expect it to go this long, but
So Spring,
that
we're doing Spring.
that was a very, very good thing. So I managed to show, I really don't know how much you got about Maven, though. You really have to watch these slow videos, both of them. You will really understand the gist of it, really what's going on under the hood. And then, but here the happy thing is I managed to show both positives and negatives of Mavens. It's like both transitive dependency and then the problems it can create. So, okay.
So Venkat, can we keep Spring for next week rather than this week? If you want, so that we can catch up a little bit of the JSTL and all those things.
Actually, Venkat, we want to do this Maven
okay.
Our web app.
I wanted to say something. Okay, guys, I think can I stop? I think I'll stop recording, but I wanted to chat with all of you guys for a few minutes. Okay.
All right.
This one doesn't have to go in recording.